Oftentimes we'll hear that phrase back the blue or blue lives matter, but that's a phrase that's leaning more towards one way than the other. And we know which way it leans more toward. And it's definitely not in the way for black cops. And this story that I'm about to bring to you is proof of just that. So this guy's name is Timothy Miller. He was a Louisiana cop, and he was recently arrested because he allegedly he tased a suspect who threw out a racial slur towards him and refused to comply with his orders. Now, we always hear, first off, before I get any further, it's going to be so much hypocrisy over this story. It's not even funny. We hear just comply, just do as they say from PC all the time. They love to hurl that towards black people all the time, or whatever chance they get. But when it is them doing it to other cops, and this could be towards not just black cops, but we've seen them do it with white cops too. When they do it to them, then it's another story. Now, one major difference is when they do it to a white cop, the white cop is not going to be quick to try to tase them or take them down unless a rare occurrence happens and they happen to do that. We've seen that happen many times. We've actually seen video footage of that happen. I've talked about it in several videos. But when it happens to be a black cop that deals with another white person, then it's a problem. Now, the irony of this is that this story is coming out of Louisiana. So this takes me back to a few years ago when you had those two black cops who was on a high-speed chase for this white guy in a car, and unknowingly his son was in the front seat. So when they pulled him over and he finally stopped, he decided he was going to use his vehicle as a weapon and tried to run over one of the guy's partner. Mind you, both cops was black, and the other guy who was in the back shot through the window to stop him, thinking that, it would stop him, and it did. Unfortunately, the cop who shot through the window ended up shooting through the passenger seat where the little boy was sitting, and he got shot in the back of the head and he died. And the two cops that were there doing their job, they got arrested and charged immediately. And nothing happened to the dad until a few months later when he got into a domestic dispute that was separate from the incident involving the death of his son. And those two cops, they ended up spending some time in jail behind that. Now, the crazy part about it is, if you don't remember, around that same time, Louisiana was just getting ready to pass that Blue Lives bill or something like that was signed by the Obama administration. And that happened literally right after that incident. They weren't even able to be protected under that bill. And now fast forward to this situation, it doesn't look like this guy's going to be protected under the bill. And the bill's been been in the books for a few years now. So we definitely see there is a huge difference between us and them. This guy was doing his job. And see, he just tased the guy or the person. We don't know who it is. That's another thing I found out before I even read this article. They didn't even identify the suspect. We don't know who this person is. We don't know how old they are. We don't know their name. We don't know, is this a man or a woman? They're just leaving it out there. But the fact they said that it was a racial slur, we can only assume at this moment that they're palm colored. Not saying that they can't be any other ethnicity, but let's be completely honest here. When it comes to PC, their respect level for black cops are extremely low. And I'm talking about the citizens. If y'all remember a few years ago, also at a game, I think it was in Florida, where they had to carry this white girl out because she was so inebriated. They had to literally carry her out of the arena or out of the stadium because she couldn't even walk. But she had enough strength to hit the black cop, the one black cop on the side of the face like a slap. He hit her back so hard that her head popped back like a Pez dispenser. And they tried to charge that man with assault, but I don't think it went through because it was on video showing that she hit him first. So he just responded. Like, that video, if you go look for it online, it should still be there. I never laughed so hard at that particular time. Her head popped all the way back. But like I said, it's definitely an us versus them. And it's always a situation where PC, whenever they come encounter with black cops, they never the respect level is even lower. To be quite honest, their respect level for a lot of cops is really, really, really low. All you got to do is just go out and observe, and you'll see it for yourself. Another example before I read into the article, and shout out to Afro Elite, and make sure y'all go subscribe to his channel. He had showed a video where a black cop was being disrespected by this palm-colored Karen, or Becky or Heather, where she went over and not only said the N-word towards this man, but she spat at him, and he did nothing back. Like, all the people did was just sit there and look and just like, oh, and just kind of react. And then she walked off and just knew nothing was going to happen to her. It's that level of entitlement that they have when it comes to encountering or dealing with black cops, that they're not going to do anything back. You can say and do anything, and they're not going to do anything to you. But when they do, it comes as a surprise. And in some cases, like the one I'm about to read, it comes with a consequence and a price to be paid, even when seemingly they're supposed to be protected. So now I'm going to go ahead and read this article coming from Yahoo that was posted on November 8th, 2021. Timothy Miller, a black Louisiana police officer, has been charged with aggravated battery and malfeasance an officer for allegedly tasing a suspect who called him a racial slur during a September arrest. So this happened back in September. Now look at this. They're treating him like he's the suspect. He was the one that had the slur thrown to him. He was the one that had to deal with a non-compliant individual. But all of that got thrown out the window because he's black. Because at the end of the day, he may wear that uniform, as you know, and be a cop, work for that department or that precinct. But at the end of the day, he's still a black man. And that's what we be trying to tell these cops out here who are black. Don't think you are above it all, because you're not. There's a hierarchy level, even being a cop and you being black. They'll still see you as black at the end of the day. Remember, there was so many documents that came out of the tri-state area, especially the NYPD, which is why I always said the NYPD is up there for most corrupt departments, with their black cops up there saying all the stuff that they wanted the black cops to do, and go and hem black people up and just go after them. Don't go after the white people. Basically, to just focus on a particular target and just avoid the other targets, as if they're not doing anything. That's why a lot of PC gets away with a lot of stuff that they do. And then they'll try to tell you, oh, you can't put your hands on me, you don't have a right to touch me, and all types of stuff, because they don't respect you as a black person in that uniform. Truth be told, and quiet as it is kept, like I've said earlier, many of them don't respect cops, period. But they'll be the first one to flap their lipless mouths and tell us that we need to comply. The hypocrisy of it all. According to legal documents obtained by KNOE-TV, Miller was arrested and charged in connection with Miller's use of a taser on a suspect during an arrest on September 24th, 2021. The city of Monroe said in a statement on Friday, October 29th. Now, this guy just simply tased this person because he could not control them. They hurled a racial slur, they would not comply, and he felt he did what he had to do. And he did that, and he gets reprimanded for it. Meanwhile, you, on the flip side, if it was the other way around, first off, it's a good chance he probably would be dead, probably. The person doing it would probably get administrative leave or desk duty. And there may or may not be any charges to be filed, because they will see that the person did nothing wrong. But on this case, in this instance, he gets arrested and he gets charged for something that happened back in September, which means he probably was on some kind of leave since that time, and they're just now charging him and arresting him for that. But with the other cops, PC in particular, they don't do all of that. They'll let it slide. Like I tell people, we live in a us versus them world. I used to say America, but this is a us versus them world at this point. It's unfortunate what's happening to this man, but he just, in this moment, in this instance, got his wake-up call. During the encounter, Miller repeatedly asked the suspect, whose identity has not been made public, and he probably won't, to get into his patrol vehicle. However, the individual refused and attempted to give their phone to a nearby person. Miller then allegedly drew out his taser, and the suspect got into the car and began using racial slurs toward the officer. In response, Miller reportedly tased the person. It's still not known what exactly was said to the cop after the suspect sat inside the vehicle. See, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, he did comply. He did get in the vehicle. I mean, if he said anything, just let him say what he wants to say. He must have said something pretty intense for him to then pull out his taser and then use it. But see, that all gets tossed out the window because, like I said, this is a black man we're dealing with here. The News Star reported that the law enforcement officer was subsequently placed on a 3-day leave on September 27th, while I probably mispronounced that. It's spelled Ouachita. Parish Sheriff's Office conducted its investigation into Miller's use of force. Monroe's Police Chief Victor Zordan said in the statement that although he acknowledged the difficulties of the job and the challenging situations they face every time they put on the uniform and are forced to react in tense, evolving circumstances, he expects nothing less than the highest levels of professionalism and integrity from our officers in the performance of their duties. He added, I will continue to hold officers accountable to these standards and take action where necessary to ensure that those standards are met. Now, what's crazy is they said all that junk, and they said that about so many PC cops, and they still let them come back to the force. But they said to him, and they actually meant it. See, when they be talking about all of this, when it comes to white cops, male or female, it's just them saying it. It's almost like a fluff piece. But when they saying it about a black cop, they actually mean it, and they will apply it, as we can see with this story here. He added, I will continue to hold officers accountable to these standards and take action where necessary to ensure that those standards are met. Mayor Friday Ellis echoed those sentiments in a statement to the news station. I support the hard work and dedication of our officers who devote their lives to ensuring the safety of ours, but I expect all officers to operate within the bounds of the law. When officers step outside those bounds, they, like any other citizen, will be held accountable. Now, what I just read, I've never read something like that before when it comes to stories such as these. This is my first time ever hearing them go that extreme with their little slogans or their little layout of what they say in situations such as this. Like, they went in. This guy had no protection. He has no backup. They're literally hanging him out to dry. As of Friday, October 29th, Miller had been booked into the Ouachita, it's that word again, Correctional Center, and bail was not set as of 1 p.m. So he doesn't even have a bail. They didn't even give him a bail, which means they just let him sit there. And they said as of October 29th, it is now November the 8th. So this guy has been sitting in jail for the last, 2 weeks with no bail. Like I told people before, we are living in a us versus them society. So this guy was allowed to have racial slurs thrown upon him, deal with a difficult person, and when he decides to apply pressure as he should have, because mind you, he reached for the taser. He didn't reach for his gun to shoot this guy. He reached for the taser and to deal with the situation. But they treated this like as if he killed somebody. But see, he's a black man in their space, in their sphere, and he's not allowed to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they told him don't do it, or they told him don't do this and don't do that, and he probably, he stepped outside of that line and did what he said. Basically, they're saying only we can be corrupt. But the thing is, he wasn't being corrupt. He was actually doing what he was supposed to do in that situation. That was his last resort. He resorted to his last resort, and he is paying the price for it. But let this just be a message to all black cops out there, or anybody who's black and wants to go on law enforcement. Look at this story right here. And then you'll see why a lot of these black cops, why a lot of them, a lot of departments and precincts hire a lot of these Sambos. Like these Adolf Caesar from a Soldier Story type people. Because they don't want them doing what this guy did. And he didn't kill nobody. He just tased them. And had every right to do so. They made it seem like he just went off the rails and tased this person just because. He had every right to do what he did. And now he's being reprimanded for it. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments.